Good evening, I'm Dawn Stensland-Menti. It is a disturbing phenomenon in this digital age. Online sexual shaming, as it's called, sexually explicit cell phone pictures and X-rated videos secretly taken of young women and then posted and shared all over social media. Now, this type of sexual cyberbullying and humiliation can turn a woman's life or a girl's life into a nightmare and haunt her forever. One woman in our region who is fighting to end this horrific trend is 27-year-old sexologist Dr. Jill McDevitt. Dr. Jill, so good to have you here again.
Thanks for having me.
And I should mention you also write for Philly.com.
I do, I'm a contributor, yes.
So you're getting popular out of the Philadelphia area. So you say that actually most college-aged women have experienced this kind of bullying. Some people call it slut shaming or sexual shaming, but they might not even know what the term, but that it exists. You can Google search it. There it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
I
something
use
that's being talked about.
I use the term slut shaming, and I think that a lot of women have been the victim of slut shaming, and I think a lot of have unknowingly been maybe even a perpetrator in some lesser known ways. So it's very pervasive right now. Yeah,
and we remember when, it was about a year ago, Rush Limbaugh asked if a university professor was a slut as she was talking about birth control pills and in a national debate over politics. And there have been other terms where there was a sex ed teacher in Canada who made, this is a legitimate term where national figures or teachers have said, girls, don't do this or you're a slut. And so that was where the term actually came. So it came from sort of establishment, which is interesting. It's interesting and sad to me at the same time.
Yeah, it's a really sad phenomenon, and I think it has various levels. And you mentioned in the beginning that it can be, secretly done, and people can be videotaped and filmed against their will, which is a different level. But it also happens in everyday encounters and experiences. And one of the examples I use often around October, when Halloween is coming around and people and women want to dress in sexy costumes, and then they're shamed for it. If they want to dress like a sexy nurse or a half-naked, whatever, it's she's a slut, look at her dressed out like this, look how she's dancing. I mean, just Beyonce, the Super Bowl, where she was scantily clad and she was dancing in sexually provocative ways, and the next day all over the internet, she's a slut. So it's about shaming women who want to express themselves sexually, whether that's through dress, who they have sex with, how they dance or behave.
Now, I will say I'll disagree with you a little bit because I have a 6 and 8 year old boys, and so we're watching the Super Bowl. I thought it was a family event, and there comes Beyonce, and 6-year-old David says, "Is that sex?" And I said,
"It's a good question." What'd you say?
What's that puppy? Let's so it was.
It's a good teaching moment, I would say.
Well, okay. And it's for Halloween. Sometimes I think it's for Halloween. For young girls, I hate that all the boy costumes are superheroes and all the girls look like nurse hookers, and so that's not a good thing. But I mean, on a very serious level, we have something making not just national headlines, world headlines. A trial that's been going on in Steubenville, Ohio. Many people around the world saying justice for Jane Doe. And we have a situation where 2 boys were just convicted in juvie court. Can we show the picture? Okay, here are the boys, 16 and 17-year-old. 17-year-old Trent Mays, 16-year-old Malik Richmond. There they are. And they've just been convicted, maybe in their 20s in juvie court. And here's what some people even call that they were treating the victim sort of like livestock or a pig. This is one of the 300 and some thousand photos that were sent out on the internet. This was the Steubenville High School football team party where a young girl, they get her liquored up and take advantage of her.
And rape her, yes.
And rape her.
I think this is what happens when you have slut shaming, when you have women's sexuality being policed through shaming them if they don't follow the rules set up by society of how women are supposed to sexually behave. What happens is that there becomes a tolerance of sexual violence against women because it becomes an attitude of, well, look, here are the rules and you didn't follow them. You're supposed to behave sexually like this and you behave sexually like this. And so what did you expect would happen to you? And it's that kind of tolerance for treating women in that way. And that's, I think, a great example of the awful what happened in Steubenville, Ohio, is that she was at this party and she was drinking, and that's boys will be boys, and it's kind of putting the onus on the woman to behave herself versus the men to not be rapists or not to behave themselves.
Yeah, and this was, prosecutors saying, we will not tolerate this kind of violence. But one prosecutor said this happens every Friday night across America.
Absolutely.
So it's something where they're trying to make a statement, and they're saying that because there were 13 cell phones and so on and so forth, so many witnesses, there's more to come with that Steubenville situation. But I also want to talk about something that's so tragic, and this is the story of 15-year-old Amanda Todd, a beautiful teenager who actually went on the internet, and here she is. Hello, I've decided to tell you about my never-ending story. And she put this up with these cards to say how she went on the internet, how she wanted to be noticed, how she had a webcam, some guy talks her into baring her breast, and then she's so humiliated and so bullied, she ends up committing suicide. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is the tragedy and the seriousness. It goes from Halloween to, look at this, I mean, this beautiful girl.
It's atrocious, and I think it's a very gendered experience. Boys or men, and there's been instances, and even some politicians who've taken pictures of their genitalia and sent a picture or texted a photo of it, and maybe there's some humiliation for a day or two, and then it goes away. And this child was so slut-shamed, and you're a whore and a slut, and you're all these terrible names because you exposed your sexual anatomy. She actually, it was so horrendous that she moved schools. Her parents pulled her out and moved it, and the person who had the original photo just sent it to all of her new friends. And then it started again. And she tried, and she attempted suicide, and when she was not successful the first time, and she was bullied for that. And shamed and slut-shamed for that. So it's taking rules for how women are supposed to engage in sexual expression and just shaming them, literally to death in this girl's case. It's absolutely horrendous.
You know, the thing about, and I know what you're saying, I mean, and we have two different schools of thought here, because I look at the picture of gorgeous Amanda, and I say, my dad never would have let me leave the house in that outfit at that age. I mean, is there a point where you have to talk real to your daughters? And I have boys too, so we talk about respect and all, but is there some point where you say, honey, don't leave the house in that? You're going to be judged by that, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, whatever. I mean, don't you give the defense to your kids too? I mean, look at this photo of her.
I would argue no, and I know it's not a popular mainstream opinion, but
no, I don't mean, I'm a mom. I'm not mainstream. I mean, I have a daughter too, and I taught them real life. I covered news for 25 years, so what you're saying is beautiful, and I hope you can change opinions. But at some point, I want to say, girls, if you leave the house like that, and you look like that, you will be a target, and the attention you get might not be the kind of attention you want.
I think that's an approach that we've used for about 30 years, and it's just not working. Women are still getting raped. 1 in 4 American women are still getting raped, and it's not helped. So I think it's time for a fresh approach. I mean, I think I get the emotional, like I just want to protect the girls. Like, let's think about this. If you do X and Y will happen, well, don't do X. I mean, it sounds logical, and it sounds something that makes emotional sense, but it's not working. Like, it's just why are so many women still getting raped?
Well, and you mentioned the statistic, 1 in 4. 1 in 4 women are being raped, and 1 in 4 children are being sexually molested. Yeah. So in my opinion, I want to thank you, Dr. Jill. I just want to say, though, that I think part of it is our culture. And we need to look at our culture, our media images, and what we value. And I think that's the deep issue here. But thank you so much, Dr. Jill.
Thanks for giving me a chance to talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you. On a much lighter note here, so many of us in this economy looking for a job. Are you looking for a job? Maybe changing careers, reinventing yourself. You want to make more money? Well, up next, how to market yourself in today's tough times. We'll be right back.